Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Board of Directors agenda meeting for November 29th. I'd like to welcome everybody that's in City Hall this afternoon. It looks like we've got a pretty full house for our agenda meeting. Not quite as normal for us to have this many people on an agenda session, but we're happy to see all of you. And that's because we got a lot of stars out here. We got a lot of people to recognize that have done some great things reflecting well on the city. And so I'd like to get to that in just a minute. But first of all, we have a presentation. One of the traditions in Little Rock is a holiday parade called the Big Jingle Jubilee Holiday Parade. And we've got some people here who are going to tell us all about it. Angela?
Good
John?
afternoon.
Thank you,
John?
Mayor. My name's John Maynor. I'm with the Little Rock Convention and Visitors Bureau, and we're excited to be here today to talk about the parade. It's going to be taking place this weekend, Saturday, at 3 o'clock, and this year's Grand Marshal is Olympic gold medalist Jeff Henderson, and he is going to serve as our Grand Marshal. We've had some other illustrious people in Arkansans here before, and we'll be starting the parade right out in front, and yes, we will be having the antique fire truck for everyone to enjoy being on here from the city board, and that'll start at 3 o'clock, Angela. And we'll run down from this corner like we do each and every year down to the state capitol. We'll finish up at dusk with the fireworks and the lighting of the state capitol. And there's been a few questions.
There's been a few questions about weather because we are anticipating a little bit of rain possibly on Saturday, but we're going through with it. If it's just slightly raining, we will continue the parade. Obviously, if it becomes threatening weather with lightning and that type of thing, we obviously do not want to put anyone in danger or jeopardy. But right now, we are planning to forge ahead. And just to reiterate one more time that as John mentioned, we do have the antique fire truck lined up for you guys to ride on, and we'll have plenty of candy there for you to throw out. And as you noticed, we had a little goodie delivered to your seat, and what those are, because people sometimes don't know what they are just looking at them, they are chocolate covered marshmallows with candy cane crushes on them. So anyway, we hope you enjoy that. Anyway, parade this weekend, 3 o'clock. Love to have you there, and we're ready to go. Any questions? No? Okay, well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Very good, very good. The next item on our agenda is a presentation to recognize one of our long-term employees for his retirement. Bruce, if I can call on you, please.
Mayor and members of the board, we are here today to honor one of our employees in the fleet department, Barry King. Barry's worked with the city for 27 years. His honors and awards include serving as a team leader with the Fleet Services Department and the 20-year Service Award. His favorite memory of working for the city is friends and family days at Fleet Services and getting overtime benefits during inclement weather. And loved working with the fellas on the floor. His plans for retirement include spending more time with his family, fishing, and vacationing to the Bahamas. Wow. Before I ask the director of Fleet Services to come up and say a few things, we also have our former director of Fleet Services, Mr. Wendell Jones. So I'm going to ask Wendell to come up and say a few quick things about Barry, and then Willie. Wendell?
Thank you, Mr. Moore, Mayor and board members. I recall Mr. King when I first went to Fleet Services in 2003, and as Bruce said, his heart is with the city. His heart is with his coworkers. Whenever Barry would come into my office and offer some type of concern. It was not about him, but it was about his whole team. He's definitely a dedicated employee. Barry and I got to know each other and got to respect each other real early. He would come in my office and say, "Mr. Jones, you know they are treating this wrong, they're doing this person wrong." And it was always, not, as I said, about the other guys, not about himself. He's a dedicated person. I hate to see the reason that he's leaving because of health, but I'm glad to see that he's gone and having this a good retirement. I had told Barry that we need to go and try to do some bike riding together, and I'm hoping that he would take me up on that. But again, Barry, I just want to let you know that from my perspective as the former director, the city will definitely miss a truly, truly dedicated employee, and good luck into your retirement.
Mayor Stetler, Vice Mayor Hines, Board of Directors, Mr. Moore. I met Barry when he came back over to Fleet to talk about, to tell me that what his issues were and that he was going to have to medically retire. And Barry had tears in his eyes because he did not want to be retiring for that reason. And that said everything that anything could say, that needed to be said about Barry. He's a good man. He's a family man, and the old term, a company man. He's a city man. And I appreciate him, and I wish you well in retirement, Barry.
So Barry, if you could join me up here, and while he's doing that, if he has a lot of colleagues that are here today, if y'all would stand and let's recognize you all. So Barry, on behalf of the city of Little Rock, I want to thank you for 27 years of service. I can see our security folks are really working good because they already got you with a visitor's tag on. But on a serious note, thank you for all you've done for this city. The Fleet Department is one of the most important departments because it impacts all of the departments throughout the city. So congratulations, and we wish you Godspeed.
Appreciate it.
I just want to appreciate everybody that come out and just enjoy it. I'm gonna enjoy my vacation. So I appreciate y'all a whole lot. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. He said, "I'm about to get out of here." Enjoy it.
Our next recognition is some winners from Little Rock Christian Academy, and let me call on Lance Hines for the honors.
Thank you, Mayor and fellow board members. I'm down here again, and it seems like we've had no shortage of schools from Little Rock this year winning state championships. Little Rock Christian Academy 5A girls cross country. On Saturday, November 12th, 2016 at Oaklawn, the Little Rock Christian Warriors captured the 5A girls cross country championship. This is their 5th consecutive girls cross country championship. The school has been competing in the Arkansas Activities Association fewer than 20 years, so this is even more of an impressive accomplishment. In cross country, the top 5 running times from a team are added together to make the team score. Little Rock Christian had 5 runners in the top 20, the only team to achieve this. Grace Ann Dickey, Alan Rissius, and Kate Barnes were named to the 5A All-State Cross Country team. The ladies are coached by Christy Nipper, who is in her 8th year at Little Rock Christian. The head of school is Dr. Gary Arnold. Roger Yancey is the upper school principal, and Johnny Watson is the athletic director. Coach Nipper, would you mind coming up? I want to give you this plaque and read it to you guys, and have all your teammates come up here. I recognize some of them. I coached a few of them in soccer, and some of them are in my daughter's school. My daughter goes to Little Rock Christian as well, so we got the whole team. Wow. Win in mass, I see. All right. Well, this plaque says Mayor Mark Stodola and the City Board of Directors and City Manager Bruce T. Moore congratulate the Little Rock Christian Academy 2016 Girls 5A Cross Country State Champions. In the quest for the championship, the players and coaches exemplified outstanding sportsmanship, participation, leadership, responsibility, and teamwork. November 29th, 2016. Congratulations. Yes, a few words, and then we'll have your girls introduce themselves, and if they know where they're going to go to school. I know we've got a lot of underclassmen. I recognize some of them.
First of all, we'd just like to thank you for the honor of being here and for recognizing the achievement. These girls work incredibly hard. Cross country for us starts in the middle of summer, and so these girls are running lots of miles in the middle of the summer heat where that everybody else is trying to avoid. And their work ethic and character and determination is unmatched, and I'm just honored to be able to work with these girls on a daily basis. So thank you for recognizing their achievement today.
I'm Allison Ratius, and I'm not sure yet.
I'm Grace Ann Dickey, and I'm a junior.
I'm Shada Bryan, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Julia Moore, and I'm a junior.
Laura Lynn Harkins, I'm a junior.
I'm Rebecca Ortega, and I'm a junior.
I'm Anna Morell, and I'm a junior.
I'm Isabella Rice, and I'm a senior, and I'll probably be going to Northern Arizona University.
High school.
I'm Anna Funk, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Anna Parkinson, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Audrey Funk, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Kate Barnes, and I'm a freshman.
I'm Sarah Catherine Peeler, and I'm a freshman.
I'm Victoria Roach, and I'm a freshman.
I'm Sydney Hazelwood, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Adeline Gohagen, and I'm a junior.
I'm Abigail Parkinson, and I'm a senior, and I'll probably be going to Savannah College of Art and Design.
I'm Livia Mack, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Hannah Cheatham, and I'm a junior.
Well, Coach, looks like you got a lot of underclassmen there, so it looks like we're going to have a good run for the next couple of years. Thanks. You want to get a picture?
Absolutely. And if we have some parents in the audience, would you stand to be recognized? All right. Thank you for what you've done. Big cross-country team.
Everybody squeeze in and act like you like each other.
Anybody that can eat this? Count of three. The grandkids that need. But either God, he was looking at them out there. 1, 2, 3.
Thank you.
She wanted to have all that sugar. Jumping off the walls, bouncing off the
Well, not to be outdone, we have some tennis champions in the auditorium as well, and so let me call on City Director Kathy Webb to recognize the Episcopal Collegiate School winners.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the board. Could I go ahead and get the team and Coach Barnett to come on up? The boys team. We're going to start with the boys team. On October 18th at Burns Park, the Episcopal Collegiate Wildcats won the boys 3A tennis team championship. This is their 12th boys team championship in the last 13 years. And considering that 20 years ago they didn't have a tennis team, it's an even more impressive accomplishment. 4 members of the team were named to the 2016 Tennis All-State team: Harrison James, Jack Nolan, Sydney Dasinger, and Ethan Strauss, and they are coached by Andrea Barnett. Dr. David Perkinson is the interim head of school, and the director of athletics is DeVario Hardy. And let me grab the plaque. And the plaque says, Mayor Mark Stodler, the City Board of Directors, City Manager Bruce Moore, congratulate the Episcopal Collegiate School 2016 Boys 3A Tennis State Champions. In the quest for the championship, the players and coaches exemplified outstanding sportsmanship, participation, leadership, responsibility, and teamwork. And we've got a couple more to present, and then we'll do a picture and have everybody introduce himself. Sophomore Harrison James won the 3A Boys Singles Championship, winning every set he played in a tournament. He also won the title last year as a freshman. If you've ever played in a tennis tournament, not to drop a set is a pretty huge accomplishment. So, we've got one more to the doubles team of sophomore Ethan Strauss and freshman Sydney Dasinger captured the 3A Boys Doubles Championship. They also won every set in the state tournament, and last year Mr. Strauss won the championship with a different partner.
I must have got a skinny one because I didn't know any words.
Okay. And we've got one for both of you. Okay. In the quest for the championship, the players and coaches exemplified outstanding sportsmanship, participation, leadership, responsibility, and teamwork. So I'm gonna.
It's coming up tonight.
Yes. And if y'all want to go ahead and if you want to say something, and I'll say if you're a senior, if you know where you're going, or at least give us your names.
I can wait till the girls come up and just, or do you want?
Well, you can say, okay, and have them go ahead.
Yeah, you guys go ahead. I'll just
Go ahead.
I don't take too much time.
I'm Jack Nolan. I'm a senior and I'm undecided.
I'm Sydney Dassinger and I'm a freshman.
I'm Ethan Strauss and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Henry Schock and I'm a junior.
I'm Graham Gordon and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Harrison James and I'm a sophomore.
Looks like we'll be back again next year too. I hope so. So thank you. Okay, now we've got one for the girls team. Also at Burns Park in October, the girls team won their 9th consecutive team championship. They've won every year since 2008. And again, just like the boys team, 20 years ago, there was no upper school team, so it's an even more impressive accomplishment. 6 members of the team were named to the All-State team: Anne Marie DeLuca, Lily Jackson, Meredith Headley, McKinley Morton, Mary Claire Patton, and Haley Pruitt. And Andrea Barnett also coaches them. David Perkinson also is the interim head, and the director of athletics is DeVario Hardy. So. And one member of the team is also the individual state championship state champion. Junior Lily Jackson captured the 3A individual championship, again winning every set she played in the state tournament. In 2014 and 2015, she was half of the 3A doubles state champions, so she has accomplished a rare feat of winning a state championship in both singles and doubles. So, Lily. And this says, from Mayor Mark Stodler, the City Board of Directors, City Manager Bruce T. Moore, we congratulate you on your 3A tennis singles state champion. In the quest for the championship, the players and coaches exemplified outstanding sportsmanship, participation, leadership, responsibility, and teamwork. So, congratulations.
Good afternoon. Thank you for welcoming us here. This has sort of become a yearly tradition for us, as you can see, and we have a very bright future ahead of us as well, with not very many seniors on our team. The girls obviously did a great job. We only take 6 players to the state tournament from each girls and boys, so all 6 of them were all state, and the boys, we had 3 out of the 6. No, I'm sorry, 4 out of the 6 that were all state. I'm very proud of these kids. They put in all the work themselves. I'm just more of a team manager, and I realize that. So they do a great job on their own, practicing most of them year-round, those that are very serious about it. And their work ethic shows on the court when they go out and win year after year. So again, thank you for welcoming us here. Thank you.
I'm Lily Jackson, and I'm a junior.
I'm McKinley Morden, and I'm a sophomore.
I'm Meredith Headley, and I'm not sure yet.
I'm Haley Pruitt, and I'm a senior, and I'm also not sure yet.
I'm Mary Claire Patton, and I'm going to University of Arkansas.
I'm Anne-Marie DeLuca, and I'm a freshman.
Okay, and do we have any parents with us? If you'd stand, please. Be recognized for all your contributions to their success. Thank you very much.
Mayor. It's already on.
You should be on. Go ahead.
Mayor, one quick question. Meredith, can you come back forth? I wasn't clear when you said you're not sure yet. You're not sure where you're going to college, or you're not sure what grade you're in? Because you didn't specify. Okay, thank you, Meredith. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you, parents, for being with us.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Moore, I believe the next item on our agenda is the 2016 audit presentation.
It is, Mayor and members of the board, it's our annual presentation from our accounting firm of BKD, our auditing firm, excuse me, of BKD, and Mr. Kevin Kemp is here to present the audit, and each of you have a copy of the CAFR at your dais.
Mayor, members of the board, management, thanks for letting me be here today. Looks like if you ever need to crowd control, just call an auditor. I can empty out a room pretty quickly. So, but anyway, we are finished with the 12/31/2015 audit. I wanted to spend a few minutes going over that. Y'all do have, as Bruce said, a copy in front of you. Obviously, once you have a chance to look at it, if you have questions later on, feel free to get a hold of me or Sarah or Ember, and we'd be sure to answer any questions. But you know, some of the high points is at the beginning of the audit, you have a transmittal letter that is prepared by management. It gives a profile of the city. It kind of gives an economic report and some major ongoing initiatives throughout the city during the year. It also mentions at the back that this comprehensive annual financial report will be submitted for award with the Government Finance Officers Association. Y'all have received this award for 33 years. We believe that this one will receive the award again for the 34th year. So there's a lot of hard work that goes into preparation of this. BKD only issues an opinion. The rest of this document is prepared by the city personnel. A lot of departments have a say in it, but a special thanks goes to Sarah and Ember and their department. They do a really good job. Just want to point that out. After the transmittal letter, you get to BKD's opinion. Again, we did our audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. We believe that these financial statements are presented fairly in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So you received a clean, unmodified opinion. And we also, during the course of our audit, we also do an audit in accordance with government auditing standards, where we come in and look at your internal controls over financial reporting. And I'm happy to announce that there were no material weaknesses or no significant deficiencies in internal control The matter that we reported in the prior year has been resolved, in our opinion. After our opinion, you get into management's discussion and analysis. That begins on page 4 of the document. Again, this is for those that do not want to read a 200-page document, this 12 to 14 pages kind of gives you a quick summary of the year. It compares 2015 to 2014. Some of the financial highlights that are included in this was their assets exceed your liabilities by $500 million at the end of the year. You will see that unrestricted net position is in a negative balance this year. That is due to, and I failed to mention this earlier, this was a year that we adopted Governmental Accounting Standards Board 68 and 71. Again, that's just accounting jargon. It's basically pension related, where the standard setters determined that all municipalities, all governments should put their full pension liability on the books. In the past, that was not the case. You only submitted a portion of that each year. So as a result of that adoption, there was a $122 million restatement at the beginning of the year. That was what was needed to put the full net pension liability on your books. And we'll go into more detail of that here in a few minutes. But because of that, again, your unrestricted net position and your governmental activities is now negative. Your unassigned fund balance in the general fund was at was $26 million, and that was 13% of your total expenditures, including transfers out. Again, later on, it kind of gives a great summary of the general fund budget to actual summary, and any significant variance has been explained in detail. And it also gives highlights of your capital assets and debt activity for the year. And it provides the latest bond ratings on all debt, including those of your component units. The financial statements themselves, begin on page 24. I won't go into any detail on that since this information is nearly a year old. The reason that we are a little late in presenting, we usually come in May or June, but due to the adoption of the standards this year, we had to rely on a lot of actuarial reports and information from third parties. There was a delay at LOPFI in getting their information in the complete format. So that information was received in the middle of August. So after you all got that information, y'all were able to wrap up the report in about a month. But the fund financial statements are in the same format that Sarah presents to y'all throughout the year. We made very little audit adjustments during the course of our audit, so I think y'all can rely on information that you are getting on a monthly basis as accurate. And a couple of things I wanted to point out actually within the CAFR themselves, or the report itself, is on note 4 on page 56. Kind of gives you a pretty good detail of the long-term liabilities by not only the primary government but also the component units. So you can kind of see which organization has what debt outstanding. And then what I've been talking about on note 6, beginning on page 67, you get into your net pension liability or your pension funds. On page 68 at the very top is a summary of your net pension liability by pension plan. U-Haul have about 7 plans, and you kind of see it broken out by individually for a total net pension liability of $190 million as of 12/31/2015. This disclosure continues to grow and grow. In the past, it was probably a 10-page disclosure. Now it exceeds almost 30 pages. So a lot of good information in there, a lot of actuarial assumptions. It also gives some sensitivity analysis. A lot of the assumptions is based on what the market will do, and various actuaries use a different rate of return. So within the document itself, it shows, well, if you've estimated a 7.5% rate of return, what the net pension liability would look like if it was 6.5 or 8.5. So a plus or minus 1 differential. And then finally, for those who like historical information, beginning on page 135 is statistical information. Kind of gives 10-year trends on financial information, the revenue capacity, which focuses on sales and property tax, your debt capacity, and some various demographic and economic information, as well as some operating information. So obviously that's a very quick run through of the CAPRA itself. It will be online it is online for citizens who wants to take a look. Like I said, I think it was a good year overall financially, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have any questions? I don't, hearing none, thank you very much.
Thank you,
Mayor.
Another good job by the city, and thank you, Sarah and staff. Bruce had something, I think. Bruce, did you have something?
Yeah, I wanted to recognize Sarah and her key staff. Kevin mentioned them too, but it really is a team effort, and I'm very proud of the work that our finance team does. And as Kevin also mentioned, there's a lot of work that goes into it from city staff. So I want to thank Sarah and her team. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you all. Okay. That concludes the for some reason, Scott, the machine's not working for people who wish to speak, so I'm going to leave it on for everybody and try and recognize.
We move into the agenda. I want a presentation on that too.
All right, we're going to go into the consent agenda now. And let me ask you to look through the items 1 through 10 on the consent agenda. And
Okay.
go ahead, Director Wright.
I'd like a presentation on number 2, Mr. Moore, resolution number 2.
Mayor, members of the board, this is a partnership with the Highway Department to do improvements there at the Colonel Glenn Asher University intersection. We're working with really two parties, ULR and the Highway Department, and it's about a $1.2 million project. The Highway Department is putting in the half of it, and this is the city's match. They're still working on what the design will be. In fact, somebody stopped me yesterday and said, we're not doing this roundabout at Asher University, and we're not. That was something that had been contemplated in an earlier Tiger Grant application, but it will do some significant street improvements, intersection improvements in that area.
Okay. Well, that was going to be my next question. Do we have a design? So when will we have a design? Do you have any?
They are just starting. We needed to do this to let the Highway Department know that we're going to partner. So they're just starting. We're working on an MOU with ULR and the Highway Department. So it's going to be 6 months probably before they come out with some type of design there.
So the Highway Department will be handling all design work?
Correct.
Okay. So our staff won't have any
No.
input?
That's what the MOU is based on, is that ensure that all three parties are at the table and talking about various options.
Okay. I think that's very important because I know some of the businesses right there, especially the Mosaic Church, is very much interested in how this design turns out.
Yeah.
So I'd like to be kept informed if I could.
Definitely. I think it's going to be a big improvement to that intersection that's
Thank you.
needed.
Okay, any other items? Director Richardson.
Yes, Bruce, I'd like to have a presentation on resolution number 4, please.
Administrator Mr. Tapp to come forward.
Mayor, members of the board, good evening. That's a donation to the land bank from Miss Pamela Lewin, and that is a vacant lot on 11th Street that is in the land bank's original focus area. It's a couple blocks from Central High School, a couple blocks from Woodrow.
Pick your mic up.
Oh, sorry. Did you hear any of that?
No.
Okay. Sorry about that. Mayor, members of the board, this is a donation from Miss Pamela Lewin, and this is a vacant lot that is buildable. I do have some pictures. There's a map there showing you where it is. It's just north of, or just south of 630. It's a couple blocks from Woodrow. It's a few blocks north of Central High School, and it's about 7,000 square feet, and there's no structure on the property at this time.
Go ahead, Director Richardson.
Yes, and this may not be a question that you can answer. Are there plans for any kind of structure to be built on that? And also, Bruce, I'd like a presentation on number 3 as well.
The plans in the future are to either get a builder or developer to put a structure on that property, yes.
Much like we've done with our other NSP 1 and 2 properties.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. And number 3, please.
That's the 9500 Geyer Springs, correct?
Yes.
That is also a vacant lot that's in the city land bank. It's approximately 22,000 square feet. Ms. Sharon Houston has made an offer for $4,000 for that property. List price was approximately $5,000, and her plans are, she owns a daycare in Southwest Little Rock, and she's wanting to expand her daycare and build it on that lot. And she also has an after-school program that will be on that property as well. That's right across the street from McClellan High School, and that lot is between, you can see the view from the lot to McClellan there. That lot is between 2 churches.
So it'll serve dual purposes, one a daycare and one a after-school or out-of-school youth program?
It didn't say youth program, it just said after-school program.
I hope the kids
On
in
her
daycare
application.
are not going after school. So we don't know what kind of youth program?
I don't. I can get some details from her if you'd like me to.
Yes, please, because there's a great need for more after-school and out-of-school programs in that area due to the population shifts and particularly what's going on in certain parts of our community. I think Bruce has something we need to look at real closely. Thank
Sure
you.
thing. I'll get that to you.
Mhm.
Are you finished, Director Richardson?
Yes, ma'am.
Director Wyrick, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. My questions were on item 3 as well. That's been a vacant lot for a long time, and I can remember some Saturday mornings when myself and the neighborhood went down there and mowed it and cleaned it up. So I'm excited that there is some kind of development that's going to happen there. This was zoned commercial, so it's originally, so it stayed commercial all this time that it's been vacant, so it will remain commercial?
That's my understanding, yes, ma'am.
Okay, all right. And the other thing is, Doris was talking about Colonel Glenn and University, and Ken and I want to know about that too, because we all border on that intersection. You're across the street, no, across the street. That's it, thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions about items 1 through 11? 1 through 10? If there's no objection, I'd like to go ahead. I've received a notice from the Central Arkansas Library Board for 2 appointments, so I'd like to add those as an item 11 on the resolution page from the second. Yeah, it is. It's working now. So if there's no objection? All right, we'll add those. Director Adcock.
Yes, I would like item 9 separate, please.
You want a presentation on item 9?
I know, I'd like it separate.
Oh, you like it held separately?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, we can now move on to the planning and development items. 11 through 14. Director Wright.
Yes, Mayor, I would like a presentation on ordinance number 12.
Straczynski.
Director Wright, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the board. Item 12 is a request to revise a previously approved plan development for a mixed residential project. This is on Labette Drive, which runs west of John Barrow Road. The proposal is to develop it in 4 phases. The first 3 phases will be age-restricted multifamily buildings along the north perimeter of the property with accompanying parking. And they will have, the 3 buildings will total 83 units, and they break down, 2 buildings will have 27 units, and the 3rd building will have 29 units. The 4th phase are single-family lots for detached housing, and then also one of the lots will be used for what they're calling an activity center. There will be a pocket park, and then some other related uses like a maintenance building or an office type use. This was at the Planning Commission meeting on November 3rd. It was on the consent agenda. The Planning Commission voted 8 ayes, 0 noes to recommend approval, and staff is in support of the revision to the plan development.
Was there any opposition at the Planning Commission?
No.
And the applicant, who is the applicant? This has been approved a long time, and I've forgotten. I think it's because it could have sold, and all the time that.
And the developer's listed as Faithland Commercial Properties.
Okay, that's the same individual.
I
then.
think, yes, it is.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Kazort, you're next, please.
Don't run off, Tony. Item 11.
Director Kazort, Mayor, Vice Mayor, board members. Item 11 is property located at 12,418 Cantrell Road, which is on the north side of Cantrell, Highway 10. And the request is to also amend a previously approved plan development that was originally approved for 01 quiet office uses. And the revision is to add a health studio and spa as a allowable use. It is a developed site. There's adequate parking for this type of use. And again, this one was also on the consent agenda at the Planning Commission meeting. The commission voted 8 ayes, 0 noes to recommend approval.
Mayor. Back on.
You are on.
Flashing red. Thank you. So, Tony, there's no additional construction then? This is just an additional use in the current construction?
Yes, Director Gazord. No, there won't be any additions to the building. It's just to add this one use to the list of allowable uses.
Okay, and what is that, the property due east, the 03 property, what is that that's there? I'm trying to figure out where this is.
I can tell you to the west on that viewpoint court, there's D1 Sports is the rear building, and then there's a clinic on the front. The one to the east, Director Gazord, I think is an office building.
Okay. Okay. I was just trying to to orient where this exactly was, but thank you.
Okay, let's see. Director Adcock.
Tony, item 13, please. It says this is for a public school. And we know that they're closing public schools, so I'm wondering, what is this use?
Director Adcock, this is the Goodwill property on Scott Hamilton and I-30.
I think this is the wrong picture.
Scott, that's item 14. And the property is zoned I-2 light industrial, and the request is to rezone it to planned industrial development because Goodwill's proposing to have an adult high school there for individuals 19 years or older, up to 100 students. And in I-2, a school is not listed as a permitted use.
Okay. But it's all adult ed.
Pardon?
It's all adult ed, adult education.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, Director Richardson, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Tony, back on 13, will this adult ed be centered around getting GED?
Director Richardson, it's our understanding they will be getting a high school diploma.
So another kind of specialized training like welding or carpentry, just straight up high school diploma?
I don't think so. I think just a high school diploma.
And do we know if it'll be open to anybody in the city of Little Rock, or will it be geographically targeted?
I'm not sure about, all I know it's 19 and older for 100 students, up to 100 students.
Thank you, Tony.
Director Wyrick, you're recognized, please.
My questions were on number 3 and they've been answered. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I mean, number 13, not number 3, number 13. Thank you. My questions were on that and they've been answered.
Been answered, okay.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
All right, any other questions on these items? If not, we can move to the public hearing items 15 and 16. Vice Mayor Hines.
Like a presentation. Presentation on 16, please. And Tony.
Mr. Brzezinski.
Vice Mayor Hines, Mayor, board members. Item 16 is before you on appeal. This is a conditional use permit request for a wastewater treatment plant outside the city limits, but within our jurisdiction. The Planning Commission voted 1 aye, 9 noes, denying the conditional use permit. The applicant has filed the appeal, and that's what's before you. Again, what's being proposed is a wastewater treatment plant on approximately a little bit less than 2 acres, as you can see on a portion of the property. Again, this is on the north side of Highway 10, in the general vicinity of Goodson Road, and I'm not sure about other landmarks out here. And the ultimate use that's being proposed is for a single-family development of close to 110 lots. Again, the Planning Commission denied the conditional use permit. Staff is recommending denial also of the conditional use permit. We're concerned about that it's the compatibility with surrounding properties, potential negative impact on those properties, and then this is all the impact, the long-term issues associated with this kind of use. There was opposition at the Planning Commission meeting, and they raised concerns with another plant discharging into Nolan Creek, type of growth that this is proposing, whether it's a compatible development or not. the effect of a number of treatment plants on the environment, on the creek, the Little Maumelle River, and so forth. And also an issue that came up was enforcement of if these plants start to fail, what happens, and then the maintenance of the plants. And those are also concerns that staff has with what's being proposed.
Tony, let me ask you a question since you get into the reasons for staff recommendation denial. What's the zoning? What have we zoned this property?
The property is zoned R2 single family.
Did this application,
Well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to, but
go ahead.
it's currently a planned development, but the proposal is to revoke the planned development to go to R2 single family to allow the proposed residential development.
Okay, before it was planned commercial, I think that was a driving range that was put in several years ago, is that correct?
That was one use, but then after that, there was another plan approved that created several lots. That was, I think, for a mixed commercial and office development.
Okay. What was the property before it was PCD?
R2.
It was R2? Okay, so based on our R2 zoning, what's the objection? Because it was my understanding that the, other than the conditional use permit, the application of lot plating met all our minimum standards for R2 single family. Is that not correct?
Vice Mayor Hines, it's been quite a while since the plat has been, that I've looked at the plat, because it was on a plan commission agenda, but it's been deferred a number of times to allow this process to move forward.
Okay.
So I can't remember if it complies or not.
Who regulates the discharge of these packaged treatment plants?
Arkansas Department of Environmental Quality.
Okay, and I know we've gotten into catch-22, so they have not approved the permit. We are merely, Tom, I guess the question is, do we have any oversight whether discharge, or can we just determine when we issue conditional use permit, what are we looking at for granting? Can we consider the discharge, or is that under our purvey?
Well, we don't have any control over the discharge.
Or the regulation of the...
No, the regulation is going to be done by, should be done by the Department of Environmental Quality.
Okay. How far outside the city limits is this, Tony?
It's pushing 2.5 miles. It's right on the edge of our extraterritorial boundary.
Okay. Thank you.
Director Adcock.
Yes, item 15, Tony. My question is, have they changed that drive coming out on West Monroe?
Director Adcock, late this afternoon, we were given, I'm not going to say it's a revised plan at this point, but a plan that does show a different configuration for the driveways. Staff has not really had an opportunity to look at how that works or doesn't work.
Okay, you haven't had an opportunity then to know if you approve it or an opposition?
That's correct.
Okay.
And there, you still have the use question. That doesn't change with the driveways.
Okay. When would you know? When can you get us an answer to it?
We're hoping to sit down tomorrow and look at and I'm just going to call it a plan at this point.
Okay. Can we have an answer to that by Friday in Alpone?
I think so.
Okay, thank you.
Director Fortson, you're recognized, please.
Back on number 16, Mayor, when this was first discussed back in September, my memory is that you and I think I also requested we have some sort of analysis and study of the history of pre-annexation agreements from extraterritorial areas, primarily our history with water. What's the status of that study?
Well, the status as it relates to water and Tom may help my recollection, but we did execute several pre-annexation agreements with properties that were outside our city limits, which was basically a covenant that ran with the land so that it was transferable to successive owners. That basically said that when a if and when the city wished to have that property brought into the city of Little Rock, it would be brought in. In other words, people I got notice on the front end that this property likely would become part of the city at some point in the future. I think there may have been a couple of times when it was done with sewer, but typically that had not been done with sewer. I think it's possible that it could be done with sewer. I had a casual conversation with Greg Ramon about it, and he indicated that if the city board were interested in reviewing that matter, that he would be happy to pursue an analysis of it. But I think he was wanting to know whether the city wanted to look at that or not.
But there are no agreements like that presently enforced, to your knowledge. In the area.
For sewer?
Right.
I don't think there are. I say that. I mean, I think Greg mentioned something about an exception, but I'm not sure I can recall specifics of when it was. Brad, do you remember?
Mayor, I don't. My time here, we've had occasion on a handful of times that we have approved pre-annexation agreements for sewer service.
We have? Okay.
But it's been a while since we've done that. Or was it just pre-annexation for water, Tom?
Yeah, we've never done.
Okay. So sewer had to be contiguous and annexed in, and water was a pre-annexation agreement?
No, they both have to be contiguous to be annexed in. I think we did one for Wrightsville for the Department of Correction. I think I remember that one, but
I remember one or two, but they were a while back.
and then we worked an agreement with Shannon Hills, which wasn't a pre-annexation agreement. We basically let them tie in at the end of their city limits, and we had a pipe extended out there to them, but I think that's since been taken over by Water Reclamation.
But did not those agreements, as I understood, what I think you told me, Mayor, require that the agreeing parties be contiguous to the existing city boundaries? You couldn't leapfrog over none, so.
Well,
right. So that,
Annexation law requires that they be contiguous to the city boundaries.
for annexation, but in this instance, if somebody wanted to pay for the sewer extension and had the easements to do so, and a pre-annexation agreement, theoretically, you can provide sewer through our own sewer department as opposed to these package treatment plants.
but if I understood Tony correctly, the subject property is some 2 miles from the city limits, so.
Correct.
That's,
But
a long
again,
way.
that's because that's why you would want a pre-annexation agreement, is that,
Right.
you know, eventually the city will probably grow out that way, and
Thanks.
at that point in time, rather than have somebody dispute whether they want to be in the city or not, that issue would have already been resolved. Okay, does that answer your questions?
Yes, thank you.
Director Wyrick.
Thank you, Mayor. Tony sat down. I'm not sure if he's the one to answer this or not, but I might start with him. He turned his back on me. What does that mean? He went to get his book.
I have my book.
Do what? In looking at the write-up from the Planning Commission, there's a couple of things that I wanted to ask about, and Vice Mayor Hines brought up the permit from ADEQ. And when you read the write-up, it makes it look like that ADEQ is ready to approve the permit, but they're waiting on us.
Director
Is
Wyrick,
that the way you understand it?
That is correct, that they will issue a construction and discharge permit upon the city's approval of the conditional use permit for the plant.
So they don't have an issue with all the information regarding the treatment plant that they've provided to ADEQ?
I guess not.
Okay. And then the health department has also approved the treatment plant?
Yes.
Okay. And then I seem to recall, did we get a memo or a letter from Pulaski County regarding this sewer treatment plant?
Director Wyrick, I'm not sure when it happened, but I think the quorum court passed some type of resolution addressing these on-site treatment plants. But
Okay, and what did the resolution say? Were they for this or against it? I'm thinking that they were against it. Okay, I think Tom's saying that they didn't want any more.
My memory is that there was a request from the quorum court that the city not deal with any extraterritorial developments of this nature until somebody could come to some agreement about how to deal with the utility issue.
Specifically, that's the sewer treatment plants.
Specifically sewer.
Okay. All right. That's it. Thank you.
Director Campuris, you're recognized, please.
Don't run off. Tony, some complicated questions. Tell me the procedure before this came up about our relationship with ADEQ and their permitting.
Director Campuris, I found out, or when this came up, I did contact ADEQ about their process, and that's when I was informed that what they were requiring was action by a local municipality, in this case, the city, to grant the conditional use permit. I think that was a little bit different. That was different from how it had been handled in the past, but I can't tell you for sure.
But I mean, someone knows. I mean, Bruce, Tom.
It's my understanding, and this was our first time having to deal with this particular issue with them, but it was my understanding that the developer was going through the process and was very close to getting a permit from ADEQ, and then the staff decided that, well, we think that it should have proper zoning from the municipality before we even go forward with the permitting process. And the one example that the director gave me is, if we approve this treatment plant and through the CUP process, the treatment plant is moved for some reason because of objections and so forth, then they felt like they put a lot of staff resources into this review and recommendation, and now that it's been moved, and would it have to come back to them? I mean, that was probably the most relevant example that they gave.
But if memory serves me correctly, when these issues have come up, they've dealt with it first, and then we've dealt with it second.
Correct.
So basically, they're shifting the responsibility to us.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is there a way of shifting it back to them?
Well, I mean, I told them.
I think that, let
me just say, Director Pierce, I said to the staff, including the director, I said, if this is the process going forward, then, I think one of the key issues that came up during this discussion and another development was the whole ADEQ process. And I said to them that, it really puts the city in a very difficult position not knowing whether or not this is, because we don't have, and I've said this, Tony, John, that's not their area of expertise. In our city, it's our wastewater utility, but yet, they're outside of the city, so they wouldn't deal with it either.
Well, that was my question. You want me to approve something?
No, we don't.
No, we don't.
No. Well, but you really do. You want me to approve a zoning process that uses something that I don't understand.
But remember, this is on appeal. That's why it's before you.
But still, what it comes down to is that we're going to be asked to adjudicate or decide whether a portable or a unit is safe over the long period of time. who takes care of it, what happens if it breaks down, all the responsibilities. And I find it a very uncomfortable position to be in. I mean, I feel a little bit like when we went back a long time ago, BJ, when we were trying to talk about concrete culverts versus, you know, we had to decide on what kind of, right, about culverts when, you know, we were not experts in that field. And that is what bothers me about this. And I don't know, I don't think it's a fair question to ask us. I really don't. I mean, can anybody be here next week and talk about these units, their safety, who takes care of them, if they fail, who does it, all those sort of questions. And those are the real issues. And I know that's not what we're being asked to approve, but the next thing is, if they were getting ready to approve that, then that's really what's going to happen. So, you know, if you look at the long-term effect of this, that's what we're being asked to do. And I don't think that's fair. I mean, I don't, unless you and John have some expertise that, and I think y'all are talented young men, but unless y'all have some expertise that I don't know about, that's not an issue that I think we're able to get your advice on. If you tell me that the road's going to work this way, John can tell me. If you tell me that this is what we say is good planning, I understand that. But I don't understand this other.
Assume at the Planning Commission meeting, there was the two engineers, and one did discuss, I think, how it kind of operates. But in the write-up under the staff analysis, if you get totally bored, there is a paragraph that talks about the operation. And
I know, but that's, again, but you know, if you come to me as a gastroenterologist and want to know about brain surgery, I can tell you, maybe a little bit about it, but that's not my area of expertise. And why we're put in the position by ADQ to decide on an issue like this when we don't have anybody on our staff to tell us that is not a fair situation to be in.
What was the planning? I mean, what is the basis of the planning staff's recommendation of denial?
Mayor, we're concerned about the impact and compatibility of this on compatibility with surrounding properties, potential impact on those properties.
In what way? Because they're single-family lots, right?
Well, that's what's being proposed, and that's the other aspect of this. That single-family plat is 111 lots. That's a fairly dense urban-type development, and you're pushing that out over 2 miles from the city limits. We don't think that's good planning. We think that's leapfrogging over a lot of other land and leading potentially to sprawl. I mean, typically you would have that kind of development within the city limits or adjacent to the city limits. So what's being proposed is the first step to allow what we're referring to as a dense urban development. And we question whether that's appropriate there.
Is R2, it's zoned R2?
It's currently zoned PCD, but they would revoke that to allow this development.
Well, PCD would be planned commercial development, so.
Which was for the golf course, and I think Vice Mayor, it was a
So
combination.
what would be an appropriate use of the land? If you're saying that single lot residential is not appropriate.
Probably residential at a lower density than what's being proposed. I mean, again, to get where they want to get, they need this treatment plant, and we're concerned about long-term impacts and the question about maintenance of them in the future. And then, as was brought up during the Planning Commission hearing, if you have a number of these that discharge into one stream, this Nolan Creek that eventually goes into the Little Mill River, what that will do long term. And that was a concern that some of the planning commissioners had, potential impacts on streams and creeks in this area, or rivers.
If you had lower density residential, how would you be dealing with the sanitary discharge?
They could, depending, I guess, on the size of lots, they could go with septic systems if it perks and all that.
Does that not cause the same kind of concern to the creek? I mean, don't we have people that have septic systems next to creeks?
I'm sure we do, but I can't say for sure.
Well, let me ask you one other question. Do we have it in our power not to ask them, but to say, if you want to consider this, you have to get wastewater to run a pipe out there, get the easements, and do it the right way the first time?
Director Compuris, I'm going to have to defer to Mr. Carpenter on that.
Not exactly. They couldn't get the service from wastewater at this point without the board's approval. The problem you're going to have if you do that, and this is part of your discussion as to whether you want to do that, is once you've done it, then you're going to basically have to do it for anybody else that wants it done that way. And then what does that do to future growth of the city?
Well, I appreciate it, but I think someone needs to be here to talk about these units more than we understand today.
Vice Mayor Hines, you recognize, please.
Fellow board members and Tom and Bruce, here is the picture that we've just painted is the best case for the legislature to reduce our extraterritorial area based on the argument Tony just made. If it's in our extraterritorial area, that's future planning for the city. If we're saying it's leapfrogging, going into an R2 single family, we don't have a zoning for that I'm aware of that calls for lower density residential. That I guess you'd have to go to a multifamily or a higher density. I mean, or well, not even you can even go multi. That'd be higher density. But let me paint a picture, and this is what's going on. We have our extraterritorial on the western area, and I'll speak for my ward on the western area of the city. We have an extraterritorial area that leads out into the Little Maumelle watershed after you get outside our extraterritorial area, which the Pulaski County Quorum Court has already put development standards in that will reduce high density development within that corridor. Within the city limits of western Little Rock, you have essentially one entity that owns pretty much all of the single family residential in that area that's developable for any decent sized neighborhoods. That's why we are going to continue to see developers leapfrog, to better term for Tony and them, because most of the property that sits closest to our boundary is contiguous. I think a lot of it's commercial. There's not much single family. If you go out Highway 10, the nodes right outside the city limits are commercial, which show our development pattern going from commercial nodes to less intense nodes to residential, which is what you would get at about 2.5 miles. I think if I looked at the Highway 10 corridor back to Taylor Loop, it's probably 2.5 miles. If you look at our development pattern along that corridor, probably every 2 to 2.5 miles, you have a commercial node with less intense development going out. So the big concern here is that we're going to continue to see this. I think we've got a policy issue that's not rubbing. So, but for this property being another half mile out, we wouldn't even be involved in the discussion right now. If this property was another half mile out and he wanted to do it, he'd be directly with ADEQ getting a permit. We wouldn't even have a dog in the fight. And I think that I just seriously question if we're saying that it's leapfrogging and it's not, it fits our zoning. The development he's doing is R2 single family zoning per our ordinance. So to say that we should have less dense development and it's leapfrogging or sprawl in our extraterritorial areas, you just made the case for the legislature reducing our extraterritorial jurisdiction, which they've already done once. And it's really reared its head up in the northwest corridor of the state, and that's my concern. I think it's bad that we should have our extraterritorial jurisdiction reduced. But with that extraterritorial jurisdiction comes a responsibility to how are we going to manage it, and if we're going to play this leapfrog game, I think we need to have a high-level policy discussion involving Little Rock wastewater. I'd be almost willing to call a moratorium for 6 months to get together a planning group to look at this, because at some point we're gonna have to decide if that's where it's going, because we've already set the precedent. That's where our development's supposed to go. If it's our extraterritorial area, then we've got to ask how we're going to regulate it. And I just think we're setting up some pitfalls here, because we've already seen it happen. If a developer with a piece of property like this can't get a package plant, we've already seen it happen on Stewart Road, which is less than half a mile from the city limits off of Canis. That a developer couldn't get a package plant permit, so he put in large lots. There's probably 15 lots with septic tanks. The area doesn't perk. ADEQ allows a septic tank that will not perk if you've got enough that just discharges onto the land, which means anytime you get a large rain like we just had, those septic tanks fail 100% of the time when we get a large rain and discharge raw sewage onto the ground outside of it. That's what I'm saying. But when you get large lot development like that, that's pretty close to us being contiguous, you're setting up landlocking us for future expansion. Now, that may be what folks who are against sprawl would love to see happen. We landlock ourselves where we can't annex anything else, because you end up with a lot of large lot developments in our extraterritorial areas that will never want to annex into the city. And I agree with you, Bruce, that that's our final straw to get folks to annex in. But we've got developers who would like nothing more to have city sewer and then annex in when they become contiguous. So I think that's just a huge policy question we've got to ask ourselves. Do I think that the package treatment plant on something like this is probably the best thing? I don't know for sure. I'm not an engineer, but I do serve on Little Rock Wastewater, and our treatment plants discharge into their ADEQ regulated system. If they permit them to discharge, then that's our chief regulating body for environmental quality saying it's okay for these wastewater treatment plants to discharge. I think it's a little disingenuous on their part that they fail 50% of the time, because they're failing to regulate those package plants. They are the regulatory body that regulates these package treatment plants. They have the ability to fine, assess fees, to get enough money to regulate these all throughout the state. And that is their responsibility, not ours. I think that's what Dean's talking about. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on the matter. I think we're going to continue to see this happen, because, did I get $1 worth, BJ? All right. Well, I'm going to get off my soapbox then. Thank you.
Director Wright.
Just a question, I don't know if it was for staff or Mr. Moore. What does Central Arkansas Water say about this, since it's potentially affecting the Little Maumelle?
I assume you're talking about wastewater and that Central Arkansas Water.
Don't we get our water?
Oh, I guess I misunderstood.
Well, say what? Okay. So we don't have to be concerned about that being contaminated. So what? Thank you.
Okay, well, that concludes the discussion on the items that we've got before us. If there's nothing else on those items, we can go into the presentation on the budget. Is everybody ready for that? Okay, I'm going to step down to the podium and turn this over to Lance for a minute. Leave. Well, as you will recall, we brought forward for your review programmatically the various departments over the last month. And this
Mayor, do we have? Oh, okay. Camden House. All right.
That's okay.
No problem.
I'll look on here.
Has everybody got a copy of the budget?
Mine's in the car.
Let me have a copy, Bruce. Yeah, I got it. I just left it at the house.
I've got an extra copy up there. The movie? As you recall, we went through programmatically the budget a few weeks ago and talked about a variety of the programs that are incremental to our budget, and you will see that reflected financially in the recommendations and the overview that myself and Bruce are going to be presenting. If you'll turn to page 2, I want to talk to you first about our 2017 budget recommendations. First of all, we want to obviously suggest to you that maintenance of the increased funding for staffing and services and the various programs per our 5/8 cent operating sales tax commitments that we made back in 2011. And this means to continue to fill all of the police department vacant uniform and 911 call taker positions. New recruitment and testing procedures, as you know, have been discussed and are going to be implemented in 2017. I, along with all of you, I know are anxiously awaiting what those recommendations are going to be. And to develop and implement as a comprehensive Little Rock Police Department recruitment strategy. There are several discussions being held relative to how that can be accelerated, how we can maintain some additional retention of employees to slow down the retirement rate, and also try and accelerate accepting already certified police officers. I expect that as we develop that program, we will be giving you some specific suggestions on that in the very, very near future. Bruce, myself, the chief, and the assistant chiefs will be meeting next week to discuss some options that will be there that we hope can be implemented. It also includes funding to maintain the 27 police positions that were previously funded through grants prior to the collection of the tax in 2012. And this includes the maintenance of the 12 firefighters that we added for our West Little Rock Station and the retention of our 18 firefighter positions from the SAFER grant that are funded by the sales tax. If you'll turn to the next page. We also will be maintaining the increased funding for staffing and services per the 5/8 cent operating sales tax commitments for code enforcement, which is fully funded at 38, animal services, parks and recreation, zoo positions that were previously added as a commitment through the 5/8 cent operating tax. And this funding is continued on, as you will see, through the recommendation on the 2017 budget. On page 4, the recommendations include maintaining the increased funding for staffing and services for our neighborhood-based community initiatives. Obviously, this is our community programs budget of $5.5 million. Funding for streetlight operations and maintenance. This is a public safety issue. $700,000 of that goes towards our $2.5 million that we pay for lighting each year. And then funding for building maintenance, special projects. Obviously, our maintenance of buildings. In the past, we've been way under budgeted for that. We're projecting and maintaining an increase to $975,000, which is an increase of $750,000 from the funding of the prior to the new sales tax. On the next page, maintaining increased funding for staffing services, also through the 5/8 cent operating tax for our neighborhood resource centers. If you'll recall, we were able to reestablish the centers at Wright Avenue, Baseline, Oak Florist, and all of this is included in our housing and neighborhood programs budget. It provides for the continued special project transfer for annual fleet replacement of $850,000. This is coming out of our 5/8 cent operational portion of our budget. And it includes continued funding for the transit routes for Rock Region Metro, serving the John Barrow and Pulaski Tech areas. This is money that comes from the city of Little Rock to fund those allocations. The budget continues a contribution to Pulaski County for the operation of the regional jail of $1.9 million. We are proposing increased funding for weed lot maintenance from $300,000 in this year's budget to $330,000. We are also recommending continuing the funding of public service announcements and to the tune of $100,000 so that we can broadcast to our citizens the wonderful good things that we do on an everyday basis, which both Bruce, myself, and I think many board members believe is very important. A lot of things go on, we get a one-shot deal at it, and that's all that anybody ever hears about it. So this is designed to really help to reestablish with our citizens the type of good things that are going on in the city. It contains also a recommendation of $50,000 for boarding and securing residential buildings, and our Love Your Block program, the Neighborhood Challenge Grant program, to neighborhood associations, $1,000 grants so we have $30,000 allocated for that. Other recommendations, in the 2015-2016 class, there was a commitment to COP officers, and so this continues the match funding for salaries, uniforms, and equipment for those 15 officers. I think we've recognized that because of the shortage of our police personnel, that we've got about 8 officers currently on duty acting in the COP program, but though they're being paid for, those 15 are being paid for entirely through this budget. It provides for maintaining funding for the operation of the Jericho Way Day Homeless Resource Center in partnership with the City of North Little Rock, who pays a third of that operational budget. It provides in this budget new funding for the operation of the West Central Community Center. This is contained in the Parks and Recreation Department budget. I believe it's a $687,000 increase in their budget for the West Central Community Center. It provides for new funding for the operation of the Pankey Police Substation, which is in the police budget. It will be 1 employee and other operational expenses that will be absorbed through their regular operational budget. It also includes a recommendation for funding of the municipal ID program dealing with our Hispanic outreach efforts. And we're allocating $100,000 as new funding for a residency incentive program for new employees. In terms of salaries, on page 9, you'll see that we are providing for contractual salary increases of 1.5% for our bargaining units, FOP, IAFF, and ASME personnel, and also providing for a 1.5% salary increase for non-uniform, non-union employees. It maintains 100% of the city paying the premium for employee-only coverage of basic health, dental, vision, and life insurance for city employees, 100%. And that brings us then into where the money is coming from. And so let me turn this over to Mr. Moore, who is going to outline for us the proposed revenue sources to fund this budget.
Thank you, Mayor. As you can see, and as we've done in the past, we continue to work with our local entities and agencies to look at these revenue assumptions. So for the county sales tax, we're projecting a 1.5% increase. The city sales tax, a 1.5% increase. The assessed valuation is a 3% increase, but because 2016, because of the adjustments for the impact of the 2015 excess commission revenue that is included in 2016 due to the timing, we're projecting a 3% increase, but we'll see actually compared to 16 a negative there. Business license is a slight increase of approximately 1%. Next page on our franchise fees. And again, we work very closely with the utilities, both our the ones municipal related and also the public utilities, the private utilities. So on the electric utility franchise, it's a 6% decrease. On the gas utility franchise, it's a 33.7 increase. You might say, Bruce, what are you thinking? We actually got a document from CenterPoint that shows month by month going into 2017 what that number is going to look like. So we feel comfortable with that recommended increase. And then water and wastewater, you see there 5% and 4.4% respectively. Our charges for services will be approximately 2.1% decrease from the amended budget. And, you know, this is the area with where it's hard to predict on weather when it comes to parks revenue and zoo revenue. So we try to be slightly conservative going into 2017. And the other difference you'll see is we have a full year revenue stream of War Memorial because of this year's closure of the greens. The next few slides you're familiar with. This just shows by bar graph the various increases that we just talked about. And there again, you can see the general fund property tax for 2017. We're projecting to be just a decrease of approximately 0.2%. But that's because, again, of the additional dollars that came in 2016. General fund county sales tax, you see the small bump there at a 1.5% from the amended budget. Next slide on the city sales tax, again, the 1.5% growth from the amended budget that you all just approved. Our franchise fees, pretty much we expect to be consistent with the 2016 amended budget that we just talked about. And our charges for services, again, we expect them to be approximately 2% below our 2016 amended budget. General fund business licenses, we talked about a slight increase of 1%. But again, there's no rate increases that are included. As you know, in the past, sometimes we'll come forward with recommended changes in our business license. This does not include any of that. It's just that we're projecting a slight 1% increase. General fund fines and fees. This includes fines and fees from court and parking fees, rezoning fees, animal service, police reports, etc. And we project about a 1.6 increase from the 2016 amended budget. So the general fund less transfers of all revenue. You can see in revenue before transfers is about 2.2 million or 1.2% over the amended budget. So getting into just the overall, so this is all of our revenue streams. I didn't have a slide for each one of them, but I would point to the 2016 amended budget of $199,840,000 compared to the recommended 2017 budget of $204,522,000 with a percent change of, again, based on the amended budget of a 2.34% increase. I'll then go to the general fund expenditures. You will see an increase in our general fund debt service, mainly because of the 2016 notes that we've issued, and y'all are all familiar with these, the fire self-contained breathing apparatus, the vehicles, information technology, planning software, and then also the completion of the Southwest Little Rock Fire Station. Less the 2011 note that went off, that will go off in 2016. You remember those are 5-year maximums, so that 2011 note will go off. The budget also includes a contingency reserve allocation of $1 million. Next page, increase in Rock Region Metro of $286,440. That is primarily associated with link service. There's no increase in operations for River Rail, but that increase is mainly due to funding our link service with our partnership. And as the mayor mentioned, it maintains the jail funding at $1.9 million. We've already talked about the 1.5% for all full-time positions, including in this dollar amount are the fire and police step and grade schedule progression. So that's all built in to their respective budgets. And as the mayor mentioned, we were maintaining our health insurance with 100% paid by the city for employee only, and we also 55% of the premiums for employee family. And the board passed the resolution authorizing a buy-up plan with 2 options that includes lower deductibles and copays. The pension rates on the next 2 pages, again, we get these from the state. So once we get the number, we plug it in, and you can see the increase of fire pension and police pension. The consolidated police pension with LAFI, as the board is aware, we'll continue to make that $500,000 allocation to both the police and the fire closed plans. And the non-uniform pension that the board approved a few years ago remains at 9%, which is unchanged. More pension rates that are effective July 1st. Judge's pension, no change there. And then the new judge court clerk's pension went up slightly from 14.5 to 14.75. Other assumptions included in the budget, as we've done in the past, this does include a general fund vacancy allocation of approximately $7 million. So on the expenditures by category, we'd like to go back to 3 years or 2 years. So you see the 2015 actual, the original budget for 2016, the 2016 amended that the board just passed, and then the recommended $204,522 2017 budget. And I think the most important thing is approximately $2.3 million in personnel cost. Net of the vacancy savings, though, we're really looking at about a $1.34 million overall additional cost. On the next page, this is just expenditures by department. The one thing I will point out on the courts, where you see those decreases, that's because of the 3 judges become state employees January 1st. So that's the main, excuse me, the main reductions there. And then the increases are mainly associated with the 1.5% raise that's incorporated into each department's budget. The board is always interested in just our overall staffing, so I'd like to go over any changes there. In general administration, there's change of between 2016 and 17. In fact, I've got I need to pass out a revised slide for that page. And the only difference you'll see in what you received and what you're getting passed around now is we forgot to take the 3 judges out for 2017. So you can see that by doing that, we're actually down in the general fund to approximately 11 positions overall changing, and they're all listed there and with some verbiage to talk about why the changes were made. And again, as we get into questions, we can go back through any of these. Our special projects, again, those are grant-funded, are projects that raise their own money. For instance, the marathon, that operation receives no general fund revenue. So if that went away, then those employees would go away. And so we added a new marathon operations position in 2016, and that's the major, that's the one addition. Then on page 33, we've had an asset manager position in building services since I was started here as an intern, probably. We hadn't filled that after the person retired years ago, but as the board is aware, we're doing a lot of right-of-way acquisition, whether it's permanent or temporary, and this person or this position is really going to help Public Works, but it's going to be available to the entire city departmental team. So when you take the general fund and the other funds on the special funds, there's an increase of 14 positions. Outside agency support, I'll just highlight the changes we've talked about. Already mentioned the increase for link service with CATA. The jail detention support is still at the $1.9 million. This is just additional general fund dollars to get to that 1.9. And then a slight increase or decrease, I'm sorry, in our pages support. So we mentioned this earlier regarding our debt service. We talked about the notes that we've issued this year and the one that goes off in 2016. So you do see a slight increase there, but the board has passed those short-term notes to be able to, as I mentioned, the fire self-contained apparatus and others. So an increase of $1.5 million. We'll go over all of the different general fund transfers on the next 3 slides, but the overall numbers are there for you to see as far as the decreases in general fund transfers. On page 37 are some of the special general fund special projects, and I want to highlight, the mayor mentioned earlier, the weed lot maintenance and talking and working with the housing department. I feel like this was the number they needed to be able to continue to maintain our weed lots and get them cut. Hispanic outreach and municipal ID at $180,000. The residency incentive program at $100,000. And then I do want to note on the land bank and the demolition commercial, the reason for those reductions, and we've done this before with the land bank and with the demolition, we have approximately right now in the land bank $128,000. So we believe in working with the staff that by reducing that $60,000, you will still have $100,000 in addition to the $128,000. So we feel like for 2017 we're in good shape. And then the same thing with demolition. We're recommending that we not fund that commercial demolition because we have $120,000 in that special project. And one of the unique things about planning versus housing, usually when the planning department issues a notice for demolition, the owner actually goes in and demolishes it before the city does. And that's the biggest difference with our housing department. And then a slight increase on our work boots by $2,000. Then transfers to other funds. The main issue out there I would highlight is we're still going to do the weed lot mowing, obviously, but this is going to be included in the street fund budget. And as we talked about just earlier, we do have additional weed lot mowing that is provided by housing and neighborhood programs. So no reduction in that, just shifting the funding source. On our grant match, we traditionally note the grants that we are aware of that we will have match, but we're also increasing the undesignated. And so from 150 to 200,000, and the board would remember that's a fund that any of the departments can apply to use as matching money for various grants. So that we call that undesignated. We are aware of the Two Rivers Restrooms Outreach Outdoor Recreation Grant of so that's $175,000. We also are we're going to get a grant through our Emergency Management Division to do some tornado shelters at Dunbar and Otter Creek or Ottenheimer, sorry. So that's a match of $31,000, and then on the decreases, like for instance in the pilot housing rehab program, we feel very confident that we have enough still in that special project in order to, so we don't have to fund it in 2017. We feel like the dollars are adequate to move forward with that program. And then in cities of service, a slight increase of $32,000. So these are, and then the rest of them are no changes, and but you do see also the ones from 2016 that were in here for grants that we were aware of in 2015, and all of those will come off just as in late 2017 when we're doing this again. You'll see that you'll see the Two Rivers restroom, but you won't see the additional 175,000 because that will have taken care of that match. So the general fund overall summary again, 2016 from expenditure, we projected about 201,644,000. With the amended budget that the board passed recently, that's now we project about 199 million, just a little short of 200 million. And then the 2017 budget overall expenditures is 204,522,000. The next funds, I will just say they are all balanced. The street fund, the estimated sales tax turnback was provided by the highway department, so that's the number that we've plugged in there on the state turnback. And you can see the various differences there. Again, work very closely with our partners to project what those dollars are going to look like. As I mentioned, the street fund is balanced. One of the biggest changes we were able to make this year is just our overall fuel cost, and you'll see that on the slide coming up. But we've reduced that to, we think, what the trend is at this point, which also obviously reduced the other departmental budgets by that same amount. On page 43, again, our street fund transfers include funding for vehicle and equipment replacement, our LED streetlight retrofits, and for the reentry right-of-way and sidewalk programs. So those programs are still intact, continue to expand. We're just changing the way we pay for those positions. Page 44, on our waste disposal, there are no rate changes proposed in the 2017 budget. You can see our overall financial forecast to where we project about the increase of $300,000. And remember, that's where they're able to purchase their trucks. We use a short-term note, but they pay that back through our solid waste fund. And we're going to continue to do that so we can get our solid waste trucks. And so we'll have another 7 or 8 in 2017 that we'll be leasing. Again, as I'll mention that last sentence, in addition to the operating expenses, the capital expenditures are for the continuation of a garbage truck replacement program that are currently in place moving forward. And then, again, on the transfers and special projects, no major changes there. The administrative allocation went up by $61,000, and there was a decrease of 311 to the general fund because, as we mentioned earlier, we transferred those 311 employees from Public Works and the police department into the city manager's office. Page 47 will show, as I just talked about, the difference in our fuel cost. In 2016, we had projected or included in the various budgets $2.50. We're now projecting $2.06 for unleaded. Excuse me. And you see also the changes in diesel and CNG. On we're in the Fleet Services Fund. We're projecting a net income of about $9,100. The decrease in fuel expense is offset by the decline in anticipated fuel revenue with reduced prices. And also, we'll note here, what you don't see included right now is the overall fleet replacement plan that we had talked about for our police vehicles. We're working very hard to get that completed, and we'll be bringing that forward to the board by the first quarter of 2017. Vehicle storage, again, part of the fleet department. It's balanced, no real changes there. They do a good job out there at the storage lot. And then River Market, it's projected net income of $470,000. And, you know, as the board is aware, the parking garages are managed by LRCVB. And then we're proposing 3 public hearings, one on Monday out of Southwest Community Center, one on the 7th at the Center University Park, and then hopefully we can maybe reconvene on December 13th at 4 o'clock for the final one. So that is the overall 2017 budget, and we'll stand for questions.
Okay, we can now move on to questions. Director Wright, you're first, please.
Mr. Moore, I noted that you, on the PSA allocation, have we actually created any PSAs, or is that money just being continued on?
No, I'm sorry you hadn't seen them.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it was a great program in 2016, and we would like to continue it.
Okay, what stations are they?
We actually had all 4. We had partnerships with all 4 of the major stations, and
I have not seen it.
they
Okay.
take turns, and we go one station, for one PSA, and the next one. So yeah, we were able to rotate.
Okay. Also, on the right-of-way mowing, it looks like you're not cutting that out. You didn't spend the money, so you.
No, we did spend the money. We feel that it's a legitimate street fund expense because we're cutting the right of way, the medians. So we're just basically recommending a change in how we pay for the program.
So we still have the reentry right-of-way mowing.
Correct.
Okay, good deal. That was that. I saw that other one. There was, got so many pages here, I lost my spot. Just a second. Okay, on the page 31,
Yes, ma'am.
on parks, you said only 2 positions were added in 2016. I thought there were more for the staffing.
But remember, we had already in 2016 anticipated additional staffing, so that was already in the budget. These 2 positions are over at our West Central, and again, these were anticipated changes, or these are changes we made in 2016. That's why they show up, but the other positions were already included in the budget.
Okay. So
Right.
you're telling me that instead of the 5, instead of the 2 recreation programmers, you added another one?
No, all of the positions that we showed before are in the full budget. It's about $654,000 in addition. So all of the positions are in the 2017 budget in the Parks Department.
I'm sorry, I'm just not following this. Because when we talked about this before, you had said there would be 5 full-time positions.
Right, and they weren't all fully budgeted, Sarah.
Last year, we thought that the West Central Community Center would open during 2016. So we included those positions in the 2016 budget, but we only included them for a portion of the year, but they were in the 2016 head count. So they're already reflected in the Parks Department as additions in 2016. Okay, so this is for 2017 now. We've budgeted them for a full year in 2017, but we didn't have to add them again because they were already in the count for 2016.
In other words, when you had this sheet last year, this time on the Parks Department, we showed that increase there. So that's already included in the 124.
I mean, that makes sense, but you're still telling me here that you've added 2 more positions. So where are these positions?
Aren't they listed?
A recreation programmer and maintenance worker.
Okay, we'll follow up on those.
Understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do, but I will also say, will tell you that all of the positions that were assigned to West Central are fully budgeted in this budget in 2017.
Well, I want to make sure of how many it actually is, because I've mentioned to you before, it looked like we overstaffed out there. And
I didn't
just
think
look
I'd
like
ever
I'm
hear you
seeing
say
them.
that.
I look like I'm seeing a lot of different people, and I'm trying to figure out
No,
who's doing
and
what.
maybe that's one of the points that I need to make. The majority of the staff at our community centers are part-time,
Saying that.
and there's very few full-time positions. So that's when you say you see a lot of people. The majority of those I would suggest are part-time positions.
I understand that, but there was supposed to be 2 rec programmers, maintenance, a full-time maintenance person, and what, 2 full-time maintenance.
I think it was 6, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, maybe that's what one of these
Right.
positions are, but when you met with me in March of last year, it was 5, and I got my paperwork. So I'd like to know where these 2 positions are right here.
Go get that. Well, there's a worksheet we can get.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mayor.
Director Richardson. You're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Bruce, let's back to a couple of items, how we prioritize our budget and the things that are important. And we always constantly say and talk about, public safety is our #1 priority. And given this this past week, with some of the idiotic, insane activities in our community, I think that should drive the point home even more if it hadn't settled in right now. And I'm looking at ways that we can approach our public safety recruitment efforts. And I've always heard consistently that we have difficulty in terms of recruiting police officers. And is that quality or quantity? Help me understand what that is, Bruce, what we're talking about when that issue keeps coming up.
I think it's a combination of things. I think the nature of law enforcement has changed over the last few years because of some of the national events that have happened. One of the individuals in our HR department told me one day that in order to get 50 good applicants for the police department, or 50 good candidates, you had to have 1,000 applicants. That's not going to happen anymore. Back in the 2000 and before the recession, we were getting a lot of, or even during the recession, we were getting a lot of applicants. But I think at this point that's changed, and that's one of the reasons we note that we're going to have a targeted marketing strategy around LRPD recruitment. But also we're going through the review of our testing and recruitment.
Yeah, we've talked about testing before. Has there been any change to that? Because currently, and you and I have talked about this back when Chief Thomas was the chief, that you have a process where you can have a recruit pass an objective physical test, can pass an objective written test, and fail what I think is a subjective oral exam, and that one exam outweigh the other two. And the oral exam could be depending on who makes up the interview panel.
And Director Richardson, I think you're right. We have talked about it. I truly believe that's one of the areas that is going to change. I just don't have the document yet. I expect it hopefully in the middle of January. But I also will say that more than likely this is going to impact our second class in 2017 and not our first one.
Well, I mean, looking at our budget, we see on page 8, we found and identified new funding to address new items and new priorities and new issues. And currently, Bruce, we're consistently losing more officers than we're gaining. We have more retiring than we're filling those positions. And this has a cumulative effect on our general overall force. And that's been a challenge for us.
I don't disagree, and it's not unique to Little Rock, and that's why I think we've got to do some thinking outside of the box about how we get more officers, not only in the academy, but out of the academy.
Well, let's look at this. I mean, I identified some new funding for those areas on page 8. Tell me, Bruce, if we had the funding or the flexibility to pay rookie officers enough, so more than enough, so that we can have people on a waiting list, that we make that pay so attractive, that would makes it more and more attractive based on the pay. Do we have that kind of flexibility?
Obviously, the board and we can look at all of that. I will tell you we're the highest paid entry level in the state. I think that even with some possible changes coming up at the state police, I think we'll still remain the highest paid. But I also think we've got to look at it holistically, and what else can we do, whether it's our certified officers that are already officers in other cities. That's going to be part of our targeted marketing also.
So what about that then? What if we pay those certified officers in other municipalities a bonus to become Little Rock police officers?
Well, there's a potential there in that last bullet because we have a residency incentive program. And I'm not sure Tom would have to weigh in on whether we can pay bonuses as far as new employees moving in. And I'm not sure how that would work. But that's all. I think at this point, and I've said this to Director Webb and others, any ideas that you all have that you want us to explore, and I think we'll hear about a few more this evening. We're willing to do it. I mean, it's not like we're not actively out recruiting. We've added some recruiters to our training division for just this purpose.
Well, I guess maybe my terminology was wrong. Maybe bonus shouldn't have been the phrase I used. Maybe if we have people that are already certified in other municipalities, we make the pay so attractive that they see a need to come and patrol and work in Little Rock.
Yeah, and I'll follow up on that. I do think that we're able to, because one of the big differences is they don't go through a 6-month training. They go through an abbreviated version. So that's something that we'll look at as far as how once we have officers with 10 years experience in other cities, do they come in at entry level? And I'll just have to follow up on that.
So my question to you, Bruce, is do you think either one of those approaches will help us with our shortage? Because we cannot afford to keep losing more officers than we replace year in and year out. And this last week has been one of the craziest weeks I've seen. I don't think I've seen anything like this when I was doing gang intervention work back in the early 90s. And it should drive home the point that public safety should be our #1 priority, because we don't have a safe community, Mayor and members of the board. The rest of this stuff is moot.
And I don't disagree. And then when you look at the general fund summary, you can see, I think the board very clearly has said, and staff, that public safety is our #1 priority. We're going to lose 20 to 25 officers on average every year. But it is
about 30, and we recruit about 25.
Over the last 6 years, we've lost an average of 37.
Right, and we've only hired an average of 30, correct? 31. So I mean, cumulative is talking about 6 every year. In the last 6 years, man, what that's 36 cumulative.
Well, that's true, and I think based on lots of discussion that we've had among ourselves and others, there's a strong desire to see what we can do to expedite and shorten up the timeline and eliminate that gap.
Well, I guess that's what I'm saying, Mayor, and maybe not a clear enough way as I should say it. I think that we need to eliminate that gap, and I think if we have the flexibility to identify other funding as ways to make working in Little Rock more attractive, like I said on page 8, we found new funding for 4 different items, and public safety, we say it consistently, is #1 for us.
But I would, say that the first bullet item is public safety. I mean, opening up a community center, giving individuals opportunities, whether they're mentoring or athletics. I think everyone up here has been a proponent of, in public safety just isn't police and fire.
You won't get any argument out of that, but far too often we don't couch those items as public safety items. And I think you're right. You won't get any argument out of me. I'm doing the work that I've been doing a number of years. That you're absolutely right. But I'm talking about women and men patrolling our streets, patrolling our communities. Because I think that youth development is a public safety strategy. I think youth intervention is a public safety strategy. I think those things help contribute to us having less opportunity for young people to congregate in large numbers without any adult supervision. So I think you're right, but I'm talking about manpower and woman power.
We're all on the same page. I mean, I think all of us are actively thinking about, I know the chief and his team are thinking about what can we do. We're at a meeting this afternoon on the traffic safety officers. You know, a lot of board members have expressed interest in bringing that type of program back. We actually already have 2 of them that actually work out at the airport. If you ever notice those individuals out there. So what I've asked Chief Buckner to do is to look at how many we would need to assist. When we had it before, they weren't on all 3 shifts. They were usually morning and usually shut down around 8 o'clock, get through the heavy traffic areas in the morning and the afternoon. So, but I will also say that, based on just looking at the job description and the salary, it's going to cost a little less than an entry-level police officer. But in order to get individuals, and we also think there could be some retired police officers that might be interested in it too. So we're looking very hard at all various options to not only get more people into the recruit school and out, but how we can bring more in right now.
Well, I just think that's if we have any flexibility, any funding to make those kind of creative adjustments to make it more attractive for people to want to come be public safety officers in Little Rock, I think we need to pursue that. And I think we also need to look at other creative ways of formalized partnerships that won't cost the city anything, whether it's with the parole system or other folks who are in close contact with people just recently released from penitentiary, because a lot of that stems from those kind of disconnection and get in all that, Mayor. But I mean, I just think that we have the flexibility. I think it's incumbent upon us to use that funding, that flexibility, to make it more attractive for people who want to come work in the city of Little Rock. And whether that's, and Tom, we're not going to call it bonus because they already coming with some certification, whether it's not trying to make it more attractive for people in other municipalities that are already certified to come work here, which would cut down the time in terms of training and our ability to put them out in the streets a little bit more quicker than somebody going to recruit school. But figuring out those creative ways to kind of address this serious issue in our community is really serious, given what happened this last week. So it's really, really serious.
Director Webb.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And just a quick follow-up on public safety. And Bruce, I do appreciate all the conversations that we've been having about different kinds of strategies, and along with the mayor and Jean and others coming to meetings that we've had with a lot of my constituents. You say we're going to have 2 classes next year. When's the first class that we're going to have, a training class for the new police?
Probably February.
Okay, thank you.
But I also, just a caveat on that, because we more than likely won't have the new testing procedures in, because we have to go to civil service. So my goal is to have everything in place for our second recruit class of 2017.
Thank you.
But still doing the marketing, we'll be doing that, as soon as we get started in the new year.
Thank you. That's all.
Director Kazort, you're recognized, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Bruce, I want to talk about your fuel cost assumptions, and $2.06 is awfully good price compared to what we budgeted last year, but it's higher, about 15 cents in a lot of retail spots in Little Rock right now. So first question, are we budgeting to buy fuel at wholesale or retail?
We buy both.
Okay, and buying, I mean, obviously we can't buy a year's worth of gas all up front. So are we buying it on contract and locking in prices, or how do we do that?
We do the stat, and we don't have a year-long type of like CATA does, but we monitor the prices on a regular basis, and we'll go out and say, okay, what type of dollars can you give, what type of budget can you give to the city regarding overall gas, and that's how we sort of try to project where we're going to be throughout the year.
And how long a contract at a time do we try to go out and buy?
I'll get the, I've seen this within a month, and then we try to lock it in a little longer than that, but I'll get the particulars on
All right.
that.
I mean, locking in is a good idea. I mean, Southwest Airlines boomed in the airline business by locking in gas prices when they went, they went through the roof and nobody else had done that. So, locking them in is a good idea, but it can have a backward, if gas prices were to plummet, and we've locked them in, but I think that's less of a worry than locking them in and them going up, and we've saved ourselves there. So, thanks.
Director Fortson.
Bruce, this may be a rhetorical question. This comes up every year, but we're budgeting a 1.5% increase for our employees. The counties, if I read the story right in the papers, talked about 4%. And we've got agencies like wastewater and CATA, other agencies that are funded with public money or public agencies. Is there any dialogue amongst all of these entities to make certain there's some parity in how we approach employees, or is that all just independently done?
It's independently done, and I'm like you. I look at various cities, especially in Central Arkansas, but. And the board would remember in 2008, 9, and 10 when we were really in difficult shape. There were some suggestions that we use our reserve fund to give raises and balance the budget. And I was adamantly opposed to that, and I think the board agreed that that's important. It's the rainy day fund. So, for instance, the county, their major source of revenue is property tax, and you can see that we're projecting a 3% growth there. So that's all been factored into their budget. A lot of the cities, and we've talked about this before, we don't have the expense of the airport and school resource officers and so forth. So it's in a lot of ways it's hard to compare other cities when you're looking at where we are versus other cities. But I will also tell you, I feel very confident that the majority, when you look at an employee in the city of Little Rock versus one of the smaller communities, I'm pretty certain that our salary ranges are higher, not much higher, but are higher than other cities in the region.
I would assume that, since we're the largest. Based on what I know, I'm assuming that some of our benefit package is superior to what's available elsewhere.
Oh, without a doubt.
Director Wright, you're recognized.
Mr. Moore, I had a quick follow-up to what Director Richardson was talking about with our public safety, with all of the incidents that have been reported to me that actually happened in West Central Little Rock. Have you looked at any increases in the Northwest Precinct as far as staffing is concerned? Because
Sure.
that's a huge territory that they have to cover.
Sure. I think two things. One, when the current officers that are in their field training exercise get the majority, all of them will be complete by the end of the year. Each of the patrol districts then gets an allocation based on the numbers. Northwest is the the largest patrol district, so they tend to get more based on compared to Southwest and North and downtown. But it's also based on where the chief feels like we need to put the resources. So it's a combination of looking at your area, but also where you need to put your resources.
Okay, thank you.
Director Campuris, you're recognized, please.
Oh,
Bruce, one just suggestion. I think your incentive plan for policemen is a wise thing, but
that's for all employees, though.
well, all employees, but it long term, I think we need to wait for your report and try to tell people why it is better to be here. Anytime you start saying there's a fixed pool and you're going to entice people from one place to another by incentives, what you do is you make a shortage someplace else, and the overall cost of that commodity goes up. And I think our job is to convince people that law enforcement is a honorable profession that helps society, and try to figure out how to do that. So I would encourage you to get the report as soon as possible. And even if we have to have a very small class to start with and have 2-3 classes this next year, try to use whatever they're going to tell us to do to try to increase it by that way. And I just think it's that old saying about it, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again and failing, then shame on you. And I think that's where we are right now.
Okay, well, that completes all of the comments from board members. If there is nothing else for the good of the order, then we are finished for this evening. Thank you.
Yeah, but I passed that.